Hello, everyone. My name is Jay LaPlante. I'm the director of Miami Film Festival at Tower Theater, Miami. Thank you for joining us for this exclusive recorded conversation with filmmaker Alejandro Brugués of JUAN of the Dead. You just enjoyed the 10th anniversary screening here at Tower Theater, and welcome, Alejandro. It's great to see you again.
Thank you very much, Jay. Super happy to be back.
Yes. So, right now you're in Vancouver, about to start shooting a movie. Can you tell us about your new movie, first of all, and what you've been doing since JUAN of the
Dead? Well, what I have been doing since JUAN, I mean, after JUAN, I moved to Los Angeles, and I have been working on movies and TV as always. I did episodes of the From Dusk Till Dawn TV series. I have done segments of some horror anthologies like Nightmare Cinema and ABCs of Dead 2. I did a movie that came out last year for Hulu called Puka Lives. It was a sequel to Puka by Nacho Vigalondo. And now I'm doing a Netflix movie called, so far, The Last Will and Testament of Charles Abernathy. And it's a horror movie. And I don't know, I haven't really read the announcement that came out, so I don't know what can I say about the movie. But yeah, I'm in Vancouver. This is not my house. This is not my painting. And I am in the middle of prepping the movie. I wish I could be there to join you in person.
Well, we will have you back very soon. We look forward to the movie. So, this is a movie that has grown to be quite a legend since it was released 10 years ago at the Toronto International Film Festival, where it had its world premiere. I was wondering if you could take us back and walk us through your original intentions, your original ideas when you were putting JUAN of the Dead together.
Yeah, I mean, when I first had the idea of making the movie, back then, back then, 10 years ago, but like a bit more, but you really weren't thinking about doing genre movies in Cuba. You only did, Cuban movies are basically dramas and comedies. And so when I had the idea of doing JUAN, I have always been a fan of horror movies. And when I had the idea of doing JUAN, I knew I wanted to do two things at the same time. Make a zombie movie that I liked as a zombie movie fan that I hadn't seen before, but also use it to talk about social issues. And horror has always, the same as comedy actually, horror has always been a genre that it's very effective to talk about social issues. You always have a subtext there, or you have it more as a theme, like in movies like Get Out. And that's exactly what I was aiming for. And by the way, zombie movies traditionally have also been about social, have also had social commentary. The original Night of the Living Dead had a racial commentary. The Dawn of the Dead was about consumerism. So it was always about something. And in my case, I thought that zombies were a good tool to talk about the reality around me in Cuba.
Yes, and that's a very good comparison to the films of George Romero, and they're entertaining, but of course very serious underneath. Can you describe the reactions to the film when it came out? What were some of the most memorable reactions, or in terms of what you expected, how you expected it to be received versus what you encountered?
Well, it was, I don't know what my expectations were. You always hope when you make a movie that the audience are gonna like, but when you're doing comedy, when you're doing that mix of comedy and horror, you're always thinking, are they gonna laugh at my humor? And I remember the first screening in Toronto. And by the way, you kind of have a feeling, because like when you're working with the actors, when you're shooting a scene with the actors and the crew is laughing, you know there's something working, and I had like this amazing group of actors. And then again, when you're editing the movie, you see that there are some things that you're just having so much fun, and you know they are going to work. Sometimes you can feel the magic, but it's different when you're showing it to an audience for the first time. So that first time in Toronto I was so nervous. I'm always very nervous. And then the audience started laughing, and it was amazing because it was like a soccer match. It was like there were moments where they were laughing and clapping and roaring, and you couldn't hear what the characters were talking because the audience was laughing so hard. And that was the beginning. Then right after Toronto, it went to Fantastic Fest in Austin, which is specialized in genre film festival, and that was like the test of how the people that appreciate zombie movies was gonna receive the film, and it was amazing. It was incredible, to the point that I've come back to that festival over and over, because it's been like a family. I actually all the tattoos I have gotten at that festival. And it was just like that. And then the two biggest challenges after that I knew, like, okay, the film's well received, the audiences like it. But then I had two big challenges: Havana and Miami, because that's how Cubans are going to judge you. And I remember the first screening in Havana, at the Havana Film Festival. People knew about the film. There was an awareness of the film, and when I got to the theater, there was a line of 4 blocks. They had to bring police cars to hold the crowd. The people in the theater were thinking the crowd was gonna just like break the windows and storm in. It was crazy. I was so nervous. But like I always remember this guy that, like, police had to use pepper spray to keep the crowd. And I remember one guy coming into a theater with tears in his eyes, and he was like, "The film better be good." I was like, "Oh." and and they loved it. And then was our screening at the Miami Film Festival, which has been one of the best screenings that we've ever had. I was also so nervous there. I remember walking in the back of the theater behind the screen, like not knowing, like, so nervous, and such a beautiful theater. That image of when I had to come out on the stage, and that crowd and my family sitting there, it's one of the most beautiful moments, and it was great. And
Yeah.
we ended up and we ended up winning the audience award in both of those festivals.
Yes, that's true. And I remember that screening is one of the most important moments of my 11 years directing Miami Film Festival. I think we broke all of the fire codes. We had people sitting in the aisles. The Olympia Theater officially seats 1,567 people. I'm sure there was more than 2,000 people watching it. And I also remember that much of the dialogue was not heard because
Yeah.
the 2,000 people laughing. It was amazing. So this movie, what would it be like trying to make a movie like this now in Cuba?
Oh boy. Wait, I'm gonna need this. This is just water, by the way. but it's probably gonna be a long answer. I don't know. I saw one recently, earlier. When was it? A few months ago, a friend of mine was doing this podcast where it works like a commentary. You start the movie when we start the podcast, and we were talking about the movie. And I hadn't seen one in years. And when I was watching the movie, I was like, "Holy shit! How did I get away with this?" It's like, am I crazy? What was I thinking? And the truth is that in the moment you're not thinking about that kind of stuff. Now I look at Cuba now, and I am sure that I might be wrong. I don't think we would be able to do that movie right now. I think things have changed. Things have become harder. I think you always try to find a way. I remember when we were doing Juan, there were things I left out of the screenplay that we have to give them to, in order to get the approval to make the movie. Like when I don't know, the decapitation, the mass decapitation scenes at the Plaza de la Revolución has a meaning in the movie, but in the screenplay it was just a square, and I didn't specify which square it was, so it was just like zombies being decapitated. And in the screenplay they weren't even decapitated; they were cut in half. So there were tweaks that I did to the screenplay that they didn't see. On the other hand, there was stuff that I just did. I remember they wanted me to take out a couple of the scenes because I made a direct reference to the figure of Fidel Castro, and I didn't take them out. One ended up going in the editing, but because of pace reasons, it was just like slow down. It wasn't that good. But the other one is there. It's one of the jokes. It's that when Bloody California is talking about leaving to somewhere where they don't know who Fidel Castro is, he stays to live there. So they didn't like him being mentioned by name. Or the scene where Juan's picking up the phone and he goes like, "Who? Oh no, that's on you. That's your problem." So I got away with doing that kind of stuff. Right now, I think they would be looking at the screenplays way more carefully. Back then, it was also like they would say, "Hey, but here I think you're saying," I'm like, "It's just a zombie movie."
Right.
And now that they know the trick, they will probably be looking at it more carefully. I also think there's always ways. I think I think there's always ways to get away with it. I think there are people that are doing really interesting stuff, and it's just I don't know. It's a different it's a different landscape. But
Mhm.
I don't know if we could do one, but we could do something.
Yeah, well, I remember also when I saw it in Toronto, being really amazed, at some of the things I was seeing. And so my last question, because I know the audience wants to get to, we're having a party right after the
A party
screening of
without me.
Cubo Ocho, but we'll be drinking to you. We'll be raising our glass to you there. But my last question is, what kind of influence has Juan of the Dead had on Cuban cinema or Cuban filmmakers who have followed the release? And the other part of the question is, what kind of influence has the film had on Latin American filmmakers that are working in the horror genre?
I think I don't like to talk about the influence because I don't really know, and it doesn't look good, Jay, when I'm the one saying it. I do think there's a kind of Latin American genre film that talks about social issues that where I feel that in somehow we paved the way. Even I can't say I don't know if we were an influence somehow, but there's this kind of film like Tigers Are Not Afraid. I know Isa. I doubt I was an influence on Isa Lopez. Or La Llorona by Jairo Bustamante, which are genre films that are using genre to talk about social issues. I don't know. I don't know if we were an influence on those, but I like to think that in a way we are part of this Latin American push where you have filmmakers from my generation using genre to talk about this kind of social issue. Now about Cuba, I really don't think I have the feeling that the impact that I wanted to have on a younger generation that I wanted, it's not that I wanted, but I was hoping that they would take from something like Juan, is that really you can do whatever you set out to do, in the sense that you don't have to think, oh, I don't have a budget and I have I want to make a movie, so I'm gonna make a small movie. You can think big, and you can actually find the ways of getting a bigger budget and do something. If you just have to, to think how you're like in a bigger terms, not like you're making a film for yourself. Make a film that talks about Cuba, but that the whole world can enjoy. And I think just the framing of that, I just have the feeling that we opened a door that very few people used to make independent co-productions, and the ways to get a movie financed, and think since the conception of the movie, how is that movie going to be sold. And but also, if I can extend a little bit there for me a bit longer, I think that also the landscape has changed, because like right now, the streamers are the ones that are ruling the market, like Netflix and Amazon, and that makes it harder because they want subscribers, and Cuba is not a market for them.
Right.
So that's I have been trying to go back to Cuba. I had like 4 or 5 projects in Cuba that I'm trying to do since I moved here. I always have like I have this movie that I'm making now. I have the next movie that I'm gonna be making, but I have the Cuban project that I have been dreaming of making for before JUAN, and it's hard to find the financing for that, because usually people, like most producers now, go to the streamers, and since Cuba doesn't have Netflix, it's not a market for them. So
Right.
it's a tricky thing. It's like I've been dying to come back and shoot, and I have a bunch of stuff that I want to do there, and stuff that I feel I need to say about about Cuba, that I owe to myself to say about Cuba, and I haven't been able to find the financing for that. And it's such a weird thing. It's easier to finance a movie like this than to go back to Cuba and do something.
Yes, no, that's very good.
Yeah.
Good points to think about. You know, it is true what you're saying. So I hope that the Miami Film Festival's run of Juan of the Dead makes revival of Juan of the Dead brings attention back to the movie, and brings attention to how wonderful and universal a Cuban story such as this one is. So thank you for your time, and thanks for coming back to talk about Juan of the Dead. It's certainly one of the great classics in our memory at Miami Film Festival, and we really appreciate it. We look forward to the next one.
Thank you for inviting me, and I hope to be there in person soon, as we can.
Sounds good.